Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nottleman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And the sound of the gong means it's time once again for the new and improved Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. This week with real video. I'm Mike Nottleman. He's Aaron Berk. Let's see, a little introduction to us. I am a relatively new numismatist in the business. I work for Harlan J. Berk Limited. I work for Aaron Berk. He's my boss. And the firm's specialty is ancient coins. And my specialty is U.S. coins. What we decided to do was, as I kind of learned ancient coins, I decided to put it on display for the whole world to enjoy. And so welcome to my nightmare. And Aaron is going to be my mentor or tormentor, whichever way you want to look at it. And we're going to have a good time.
I'll be your huckleberry.
Oh, boy. Okay, so, Aaron, I mean, let's get right to it. Let's go to the auction. Let's go to the auction scene. What happened last month in auctions?
Well, actually, it was last week, and we talked a little bit about it on the first podcast, and we got all the way to the Nomos auction, but we did talk about the Panther Stater that was in NGSA and in NAC, which had gotten pulled, and then I was targeting this with my client, and I went all the way to 160,000, which sounds like a lot of money, especially if you think about 10 years ago when these were only $50,000. But this has an amazing pedigree going all the way back to 1934 Ars Classica and bought by Herbert Kahn. And Herbert Kahn actually was the premier numismatist of his day. So there's, Mike, there's been some doubt about some of these issues that have come out in the last couple of years. And so one thing that why I really wanted to get this coin for my client was because of the pedigree, frankly.
So when you talk about problems, what you're really referring to is legality and whether or not it's legal to own the coins. The law goes back to if it was known before 1970. Is that it?
Well, that's one thing, but that's not the thing I was worried about. What I was concerned about is forgeries. And there has been some doubt about some of the Panther that have come out in the last couple of years and whether they are, in fact, original or not. I don't have all the data about that, but I know that NAC just pulled theirs. So
you're saying that the more recent finds have been littered with fakes?
Right. I don't know if they're fines, but they were just material that have come onto the market in the last 5 years.
And so there's
been a lot of these.
And so the fact that this one pedigrees back beyond that, it kind of tells you that, okay, this one's okay. It's been vetted.
It's been vetted, and it was through. I mean, Ars Classica was an amazing auction house of its day in the 30s, and then to get Herbert Kahn to buy it, that's even better. So sure. It really had a lot of upside. And there really isn't any downside with owning a coin like this with that type of pedigree. So we talked about my spoils. That was one of my spoils from last week.
This was the Panther. Which auction was it in?
This was in Nomos.
And what was the lot number?
It was lot number 48.
So let's see. That would be this coin right here. Okay, so now we're looking at it on screen. It's got the dragon and the...
Well, that's a griffin. Griffin.
Griffin. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
So, maybe some Dungeons and Dragons...
well, you can't tell them without a scorecard, right? I mean, you're right. It's a griffin. It's got wings. It's kind of like a horse. It's got horns.
Like a horse, and it's kind of like a dragon, I guess, in a way.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a dragon. And it has pan on the obverse and a beautiful pan at that.
Yeah. The art on this is beautiful. I mean, the planchet's really nice. There's, it looks to be really nice and even, well struck. Like the coin, it has a little bit of toning to it. It hasn't been around a lot.
Yep. And I know there was some discussion about, I made a comment on Facebook groups that my client wants to put this into a slab because of all the recent forgeries, just to give it an extra layer of protection. And so we're doing it what I would consider the right way of doing it, which is to buy raw and then slab it, get the opinion, and pay for that service. Don't overpay for an opinion.
Well, the other thing that I think is important to mention is that what you're doing is you're using the authentication service more than the grade.
That's the only reason I'm using it.
Right.
And I think that was what it was meant for.
Sure.
That's exactly what it was meant for. So anyway, let's keep going here. I'm going to talk about another coin in the normal sale. I didn't buy this coin, but I thought it was important to talk about it. And that's lot 74 in the normal sale. You want to bring that one up?
I have that one up. That is the Kings of Macedon, Alexander the Great, Alexander III.
Yeah. So that's Alexander the Great, and that's a decagram. So that's worth 10 tetragrams in weight. And there was a group that was found within the last 4 to 5 years, probably 3 years ago, in the Middle East, and it was illegally taken out. And some of those decagrams, quite a few of them, showed up on the market. And there was actually a documentary that was done on them. If you actually search it on YouTube, you'll probably find it. And so a lot of us dealers stayed clear of those decagrams for that reason. But this one actually has a pedigree back to the 80s. And so to me, that made this a very good buy for somebody because it's legal.
Now,
and as far as it's not pre-70, but at least you're not going to have the worry of it being found recently and everybody knowing about it.
Sure. Now, the thing that I notice about this coin is that the surface of this doesn't look anywhere near as nice as the other. It's not smooth. It almost even reminds me of like a shipwreck damage on a coin.
It came out of the water. Yes, it came out of the sea.
That's way to go, Mike.
Mike,
you, Captain Obvious.
Right on the head.
Thank you,
so,
Captain Obvious.
Yes, it has crappy surfaces, and that's what happens when something like this can come out of the ocean. But it's a rare bird and tough to get. And it looks, if you know what we'll go through some Alexander the Greats later in the show, but it looks exactly like the regular tetragrams do.
Yeah, and the depth of the strike on this is really good. I mean, the Heracles is on the one side.
It's actually, it's Hercules, yes.
Not Heracles.
But most people now consider that to be Alexander the Great.
Okay.
It's Alexander showing himself as Hercules.
Okay.
So you're Alexander the Great. You want to
wearing a lion's skin headdress.
Well, you want to make yourself a god. So you're making yourself out to be Hercules, and on the reverse you have Zeus. Yes. So you're
the god of gods.
That's what you take with you when you're going to conquer the world. And that's what you do.
Looks like a relatively thick coin as well.
What's that?
Looks like a relatively thick coin as well.
It's very thick. Yeah, it's a heavy sucker, no doubt. But I just thought that was a great buy for somebody. I wish I would have had a client for it because I would have loved to have bought that. So that's what I want to talk about for past auctions, but I want to go on to future auctions because the auction season is not over yet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Triton sale. And the Triton sale, which is run by C&G, is going to be January 11th and 12th. Most of the ancient coins will be sold on January 11th. I think some on the 12th, and then world coins.
This is going to be Triton 25.
What's that?
Triton 25.
Correct. And so if y'all know anything about the New York International, that is the premier show for ancient world coins in the United States. It's the only show that all of the Europeans and collectors come over for. They don't come over for any other show, primarily just this one. And it's because you have basically 4 days of auctions or 5 days, 7 days of auctions or 6 days of auctions, 3 days of show, but the show is at the end. So you have all these auctions running from Tuesday. Heritage even has a sale on Monday. And then Triton is Tuesday, Wednesday. The Goldberg sale or the New York sale, which is a group of dealers or a group of companies, that run the New York sale. That's actually also Tuesday night and Wednesday night. And then there's a few other auction houses as well. It goes all the way through the whole week. And then it ends with the show. So there's 3 coins that I thought I should mention in the sale. It's a mountain of material in there.
Yeah, I was paging through some of it. What are some of the lot numbers that you have an eye on?
So 101.
101.
Which is actually all 3 of these coins I'm going to mention. They're all in my father's book, The 100 Greatest Ancient Coins. So we're all voted one of the 100 greatest. So 101 is the double signed decagram of Chemone. Excuse me. So there's actually, I've talked about it before, there's 2 decadrams, 2 artists that produced most of the decadrams of Syracuse, and that was Chemone and Euenetos. And there was signed dies and unsigned dies. There's even one that's a triple signed die, which is extremely rare. The double signed is also extremely rare, and here's a double signed, and it was actually owned, I believe it goes back to the Boston Museum of Art. Actually owned it at one time. So it has a stellar pedigree. It's a beautiful coin. We talked about before that you do chariot side first on these, and then the head side second. So reversed. But that's a fantastic coin, and anybody's going to be really excited to own it. Hopefully it'll be me.
Hopefully.
Moving on.
So I see on this one, I see the Quadriga, I see the Nike, but I don't see where it's signed. Where is it signed?
Well, there's a signature on the headband of Arethusa. There's a K.
Okay.
And then there are some down by there's some on the obverse side as well. It's very, very faint. It's under the chariot, but very, very faint. But it's there.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's an amazing coin.
Okay.
Lot 403. It's a
Bear with me.
Jewish year 5 shekel, and so this is when the Jews were rebelling against the Romans.
Aaron, 403.
403, yeah.
Bam.
So this is when the Romans or the Jews were rebelling against the Romans, and so they were issuing the Jews were issuing their own coins. They were restriking Roman coins in silver and bronze, and during this 5-year war. And the year 5 being the final year, it's the rarest. Actually, I think the year 4 is a little rarer. There is a lot of debate about the year 5s because there was a group that was found in Britain in the Baldwin's cabinet that had been there for like 100 years, and so they call them the Baldwin specimens. And they were thought to be fake at one time, but then there was one in the British Museum that had the same die, and then it came out that most people thought they were all real. So this is not a Baldwin specimen. So the non-Baldwin specimens tend to go for a lot more money. This one doesn't have the best condition in the world for these, but it'll still bring a really strong price. The Baldwin specimens bring between 50 and 75,000. This will bring way over 100, maybe even more.
That's amazing. So something that I think interesting to notice, it's dated year 5. I believe that's year 5 of the war, which translates into 70 of the Common Era.
Yeah, you got it. Dang, you're pretty good at this.
Well, I can read. Give me that. And lastly, you said you had one more?
Lastly, I do. It's lot 648. It is a Roman provincial coin issued by Macrinus, and it shows Noah and the Ark.
It's a pretty small Ark.
Well, it's a pretty small coin.
I'm just saying, I see 4 people on the back of this.
No animals.
There's no animals, no. There's no unicorns. There's none of that stuff. No wonder it all happens. So, let's see. Noah and the Ark, half-length figures left of Noah and his wife. And a raven perched left.
So, so you have to remember when the Roman expansion happened, they were issuing coins in the Greek provinces in all the different cities. And so there's a huge amount of material that came out of the Greek provinces during the Roman period. And this just happens to be one of those types.
Yeah, because the all of the lettering on it is all Greek.
Correct.
So this is okay.
So it wasn't issued in Rome like a lot of the other official issues were. This was issued in the provinces.
So
So you get a lot of amazing architectural types and mythology and all kinds of very cool types. Sometimes a lot of unknown types. That's why it's really tough to come up with a gray sheet like U.S. coins, because there's always new coins you've never seen before.
well, then my question is, why would a Greek coin be depicting a biblical event?
Because it was during the time when Christianity actually started to, well, it's a little bit before that,
Yeah.
but it's Old Testament. So you
Okay.
know, this is early on. This isn't New Testament stuff,
Right.
so it's still pretty early
So
on.
this is
Um,
when the Greeks started really to go to Christianity, and it started to surge within.
well, you had the Jews that were running things, so
Oh, I'm sorry,
they went
not
from
not Christianity, Judaism.
Judaism.
Yes.
So, I mean, until we get to Constantine the Great with Christianity, which is a really interesting time between the fourth and fifth centuries AD, because you actually have paganism kind of phasing out, and you have Christianity taking off. So you'll get a lot of, especially like in Tunisia, you'll get all kinds of pottery shards and oil lamps that will have um, uh, mythological creatures and then Christianity at the same time. So it's really very cool period.
Hmm.
So anyway, there's a lot of amazing coins in there. It's worth looking at, and you should take a look if you get a chance. And we'll come back in probably, I don't know. Mike and I talked about mid-January to talk about what happened in New York when we
Yeah.
have our third podcast.
Ooh, number 3.
Ooh,
That means we're
ooh,
catching on, I guess.
exactly.
Yeah, the new and improved.
So
Once
that's
again.
that's my news segment for this show.
Well, that was really some very interesting tidbits of stuff. I mean, we got to see this time the coins that you were talking about, which was actually really interesting.
Right?
So,
Exactly.
let me see here. What else do I have going on? You have, let's see, do you have a pearl of wisdom to drop on us this week? You do. Um, let's see. So, before we get into our name play of the day and quick our quick educational on ancient coins, um let's see,
We're going to talk
we're
about
going to talk about
Alexander the
Alexander the Great.
Great.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, so we're going to talk about
Yeah.
Alexander the Great. Let me pull that up.
Yeah. So, a little introduction to this. I always tell clients, in fact, I ran a part time dealer program a while ago, which I still have some members of. And I was teaching them how to sell ancient coins on the internet. And what I told these guys first off was I said to go to a museum and to look at ancient Greek and Roman sculpture, look at ancient art, and see what great art looks like. Because ultimately, you need to develop your eye to know what good quality and good aesthetics look like before you can really notice and buy the best coins that have the most beautiful dies. And for me, I've been doing it for most of my life, and so it's taken me this long to develop, and I don't expect anybody to develop it overnight. Some people have it, some people don't. Some people have good taste, some people have bad taste.
Yeah,
You
there's
can't
there's
sometimes
no
you can't
accounting
fix
for
that.
bad taste, right? um
Right.
Yeah, so this is something that in in learning what they look like, you start to learn what the artwork looks like, and what I typically thought of as ancient coins really don't have anywhere near the artwork of some of the stuff that I'm starting to see now, which is really cool.
Right, right. And when we talk about Roman coins, even in Roman coins, which is, portrait side and then tail side, which is a lot different than the Greek coins that have mostly beautiful aesthetics. But you can get a beautiful aesthetic Roman coin with an amazing bust type. And, sometimes if you look at coins of Augustus or Nero, and all of a sudden you see one that just like pops at you like it looks like a Greek or Roman statue on the coin, then you know you have an amazing die. And so people pay a huge premium for those types of dies. And so you want to, when you're building a collection, you want to try to get the best die work you possibly can for your money. Now, I don't expect everybody to be able to afford the best dies, but I brought up, I wanted to bring up Alexander the Great because as Alexander was conquering the world, he was taking over mints throughout the entire Greek world and issuing coins to pay his army. And so he did it in tetradrachms and drams, and he also did gold staters. So there's mountains and mountains of Alexander the Great drams and tetradrachms in the world today, and that have all different kinds of mint marks. There was, Alexander died in 323 BC, and they kept issuing coins with his image on it for another couple hundred years. Wow. And the descendants and other rulers like Ptolemy I, his general and his friend, were also issuing coins with the same portrait on the obverse and the reverse, but with their name on it. And so it just goes to show the power that Alexander had, and the fact that most people in the Greek world were illiterate. And so you needed to have imagery to get your point across. So coins have always been propaganda. That's what the Romans used it for as well. So that's how you spread the word that you won wars or made treaties or stomped on somebody's head.
So this is their way of writing the history books.
From the coins, that's where we get all of our history. So, but the rule of the day I wanted to bring up was that good art gets better and bad art gets worse. And so if you think about that, it's pretty logical. But
and we're talking specifically and directly about aesthetics. The aesthetics of good art are good, and they're innately good, and they don't. It doesn't come and go with fads.
No, it'll always be desirable, and no matter what you buy, and it doesn't have to be coins. It could be anything. I mean, I sell antiquities, the same thing. When we sell the difference between ancient coin buyers and antiquity buyers is an antiquity buyer has to look at it every day. So they won't buy a dog because they'd have to look at it. Whereas an ancient coin buyer that's collecting a series, they may buy a tough, one of the hardest coins in their set that it doesn't have the quality they're looking for until they find a better one. And then they'll swap it out.
It's hole filler material, right? It's the equivalent with moderns of buying problem coins. When you want to buy keys and things like that, you just want to save some money. And honestly, it has always been my understanding that this is a bad practice because you end up losing money on the trade. So you should just kind of save your money and buy a little bit better coin to begin with, and not have to upgrade it. Now, that's just me in my opinion. Maybe that's not as possible with ancient coins.
It is, but it's being practical. If you're building a 12 Caesar set and Caligula, which is the most expensive coin in the set, most people, if you're building it, let's say you can buy a lot of the coins for a couple $100 at the low end, and people aren't going to shell out $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, $20,000 for a Caligula. But if they bought one that's problems that they got for $1,000 or $1,500 and it looks like crap, but guess what? They completed their 12 Caesar set.
Well, there you go. There's something to be said for completeness.
Not everybody in the world has the means to go and buy this stuff.
No.
And it doesn't mean that people can't either. Like you don't have to collect the 12 Caesars in gold or even silver. You can do it in bronze, and that's a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to
provincial coinage.
You don't have to create a museum exhibit with everything. Some things can just be, hey, it's fun. Let me see if I can put this set together.
Right. I always tell my clients, don't buy for investment, buy because you love it. And hope that if you bought right and you didn't get taken by anybody, and you didn't overpay too badly, you'll get your money, a lot of your money back. If you don't get it all back, who cares?
Well,
You know,
you
you had
got
a good
enjoyment
time.
out of it, right? Isn't that the cost of it? Whereas if you buy
Right,
poorly, then you're going to end up eating most of it instead of some of it. And
right.
yeah, so it's a look. It's
It's a
buy
trade-off.
buy nice stuff. If you buy nice stuff, it doesn't really matter if at the end of the day you lose a little bit of money.
I have some clients that they buy every other week, and they don't care what the quality is. And frankly, when they go to sell their collection, most people aren't going to want most of the coins.
Hmm.
And so they weren't building it to make money; they were building it to have fun and to enjoy themselves. And then there's other people that will buy a coin every 2 or 3 months and buy the best coin they possibly can.
Hmm.
And then there's multimillionaire and billionaires that'll buy the best coins all the time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, well,
you know,
they can afford to just buy whatever they want. And then there come the people
exactly,
that, do you want Mr. Right or Mr. Right now?
right, exactly,
It's what's available, right?
exactly. So let's get into the Alexander the Great tetragrams. Do you
Okay,
have the
I do. Let me bring that
okay?
up.
So what I in the first slide I've got two portraits of Alexander the Great. And if you can look, like I mentioned, look at the portrait. Look at the the style, the sensitivity in the face, how lifelike it is.
Well, it's kind of
Um,
creepy with no pupils, but beside that, I see what you mean.
right, right. And what's really funny is you always have to think of it in profile because all the ancient coins mainly are in profile.
Yes.
So you always have to think of it like that. In fact, a lot of antiquity people come to us who are not coin people, and they'll show us a sculpture and say, "Do you know who this is?" And we tell them, "Turn it sideways," and then we can say, "Oh, it's Hadrian."
That's funny. Because if you look at this, so these are both Alexander the Great, but yet they look almost like two entirely different people. And
Well,
the one
different
on
periods and
Sure, and
different
the one on the
hairstyles.
left has what they consider to be a classic Roman nose.
Right, right, exactly. And if you go to the next slide, you see a much more robust looking Alexander. He almost looks like Caracalla here, with the tight curls, but just the strength in the face, and just it pops out at you. And that's what you're looking for in coins. You want to have that imagery really pop out at you. And so if we go to the first coin, which is number one, this is the most expensive ancient coin of Alexander, of a silver tetragram that ever sold. And so
But this coin is
all
magnificent.
it's magnificent on both sides. And what's more interesting about this coin, you got to remember all of these coins were minted at different places, right? This was minted in Egypt at Memphis. So, and if you look there, there's a little symbol. You see the ram on the reverse
Hmm.
with the feather, and it has the feathers of truth. That is only an Egyptian symbol. Where there is another Egyptian dye that's done with a rose, but that could get confusing with the Rhodes, the city of Rhodes, which also does roses as well. Where here this can only be Memphis, Egypt. And so a huge premium can be paid for this coin, not just for the aesthetics, but because it comes out of Egypt as well. Because you get a lot of non-coin people that collect antiquities that will buy Alexander the Great, minted at Memphis because of the Egyptian tie-in.
And then again, this coin kind of exemplifies pretty much everything. This is a home run. So it's got the
Yes,
aesthetics, it's got the rarity, it's got pretty much everything that you're looking for. The coin itself is, it's centered, it's well struck. It's pretty much all that in a bag of
surfaces
chips.
are amazing, and
Yeah,
just
and
look at
that's
the
why it sold for
sensitivity in
25
the
grand.
face of Alexander on the obverse, and even the paw. If you look down below the bust, you'll see little. It looks like
A
the
claw?
tie there. That is the paw. You can
Okay.
see the claws of the
Yes.
paw. You can see how sharp that is.
The
That's an
lion's
amazing coin.
claw.
That sold for 26,000, which, and I think quite a while ago actually. A bunch of the other coins in here I picked because they sold within the last year, except for the first few. So if we go to the next slide, this is actually the coin that is on the 100 Greatest Volume 2 book that my dad did. And the portrait is going left, which is rarer. Most of the portraits go right. This one's going left. So it's much, much rarer and also has a very expressive portrait. The Zeus is well done, not as well done as on the first one, But this one sold for about $22,500. And
Is that an owl?
What's that?
Is that an owl?
It's an eagle. That's an eagle.
Okay, I wanted to say eagle, but I'm thinking Egypt. So,
it's not Egypt anymore. It's only Egypt on the first one. These are all different mints after that.
Sure.
And the way we look these things up, so it's Zeus on the reverse, and Zeus always has the eagle. Okay. So the way we look these things up is you see the symbol. There's a little circle there.
Yeah.
In the field.
Kind of like an eye.
Sometimes there's symbols under the throne. Sometimes there's symbols on the outside. So you match up all the symbols, and there's a book that was written by Martin Price, who was the curator for the British Museum coinage, and he wrote an amazing book in the 90s that's still being used today. And if you match up all the symbols and the legend, it'll tell you exactly where it was minted and give you the exact circa dates of when it was issued as well.
Cool.
And that book has not to date been improved. There's a lot of coins that are not in it, but it's rare. And it has the tetragrams, it has the drams, and it has the gold staters. And it actually has some of his descendants as well in there. So
yeah, and this one is no slouch either. 22.5. Yeah,
so if you go to the next one, that's number 3. This one sold for $7,500. So now we're going into descending mode here. But you look at the curls on the back of the head there. That's how very unusual die work. The reverse of this, not very nice. Kind of stick looking.
Yeah, Zeus looks like he needs a meal. The eagle really looks like he needs a meal. And
the eagle looks like he's going to eat the man.
An Academy Award sitting out in front of Zeus.
Exactly.
So that tells you where it was made, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
See?
But, you just see the die work and how beautiful that die work is on the obverse. And, it's kind of like ancient coins is kind of like some people's golf game. You don't have it always all together.
Yeah.
You have to kind of, sometimes your drive's working, sometimes your putter's working, sometimes your iron's working.
So
here, you have an obverse that's working. You have your reverse is not working. But you have nice surfaces, and that obverse is stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, this was one where they were given an hour, and 50 minutes into it, they finished the obverse.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So if we go on to the next one, and that would be number 4, this is a very rare die type, actually. Doesn't come up too often. It has a lot going on in the reverse. I would say the reverse is much better than the obverse in this case, but the obverse is pretty dang good, too.
That reverse is pretty busy.
Features. What's that?
That reverse is pretty busy.
It's busy. There's a lot going on. All those symbols mean something. You have the caduceus, you have the victory there, you have the legend, you have the symbol underneath the throne as well. There's a lot going on, but it's a pretty stunning coin overall. This one sold for $7,500. Then moving on, you can see the art gets lackluster a little bit. See, it's much less expressive, more stiffness in the die. Still very amazing surfaces. Good strike, sharp, but this doesn't have the artistic quality as those first few did.
And this one has a lot of depth to it. Now, look, for those of us that don't make coins for a living, I think it's really important to notice that, you've got a high point of the obverse die. Almost all of it is high point. Right. And so the fact that they got anything to come out on the reverse die of this is quite amazing. Let alone to have the kind of detail that they have in this.
I agree. So if we go on to the next one, number 6, again, it's off center, but has nice features. Again, still it's losing a little bit more, but this coin's only sold for $2,250. And it's kind of what you would expect with the coin of this quality to be selling for right now. And in fact, these coins all sold this year. So that's kind of what I would expect. But not exciting, but still nice quality both sides. Yeah. You go to the next one, number 7, you actually have on the reverse, you have a ram jumping out for this symbol, for this mint. So it's a little bit more interesting, and I really love the portrait on this. Sold for $2,000. The Zeus is very well done. The face of Zeus is strong
Yeah, it's the most
and
detail we
bold.
see of Zeus on any of these coins.
Right. And so I would actually say that was a great buy for whoever got it for 2000. That was very, very good. Go to the next one, number 8, also sold for 2000. Surfaces are really fantastic. Quality, not so great in the face, doesn't have a lot of the detail I would like to see, but still really good on both sides. A very strong coin, and worth every penny of the $2,000.
No,
And then if you go
it's
ahead.
important to note this that when you say not as good, you're talking about the artwork itself and the aesthetics
Yes,
itself, not the
right,
engraving or anything else. Because the depth of these things are really strong. They're really really talented in what they're doing, but the
right.
intricacy of the design is just not there.
Well, and I always talk about this with people, like when people are talking about slabbing and they're talking about, well, if a coin like that gets a star 5555 because that is the grade. That's the quality of it. But the die work isn't that great. Why would you pay 10 times? Why would you pay $5,000 for that coin? Just because, there are gazillions and gazillions of dies. And so, when dealers like myself see an Alexander that we get excited about, it's like 1 in 1,000.
Mm.
So if you go to the next one, number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9. So this one sold for 1,200. That's fair price for that. It lacks a lot of aesthetics, but still for the money, this is right on. I mean, that's a very nice coin for the money.
Now
And
this one seems to have some wear.
it has a little bit of wear, but not terrible, actually. And you got to remember, too, is that as they were striking coins, the die wears. And so you may have a coin that looks worn, but it's actually not. It's just that's the die. That's just, in the life of the die, that's where the strike ended up.
Sure.
So if you go to the next one, number 10, that's kind of what I would expect for a coin under $1,000. Still has strong features. It has some surface issues, but not terrible, pit marks and things like that. But I would be proud to own that coin.
It
I would have
looks
no
like
problem
a
owning that.
coin. I mean, these things were money. They were used. They've
Mm-hmm.
been around for almost 2,000 years.
100%. Oops.
Yeah. Hey, that's only one.
We made a joke that
People
in
with
the
the
first
drinking
podcast I
game
said
need to do a
100%
shot
too many
now.
times, so I said I wasn't going to. So anyway,
Yeah. So if
one time.
you're playing your bingo card, you can mark that one off.
That's right. So number 11, again under $1,000, $900. Nice coin, And let's just keep going. Number 12, that's the most, the cheapest one, $485. That's a nice coin for anybody to own. There's nothing wrong with a coin like that. It
No
has
shame in that
features.
game.
Yeah, it has the features you expect. It has the quality you'd expect. There's nothing wrong with owning a coin like that. It's the right price for the right die quality and the right quality of the surfaces. And then finally, if you go to number 13, the next one, now you start seeing wear, you see surface issues, but still a pleasant coin. It was $250, and there's nothing wrong with owning that coin either.
And this may even be strike related, some of this weakness.
So it still has nice features in the portrait. It's just worn, and but you're going to own a piece of history for $250. There's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but you know what would be wrong is if you way overpaid for something like this.
Right, and that's why we're going to get into the next coin, which is also my doofus purchase of the week.
See how I set you up? Put it on a tee for you.
You did. I smacked that sucker. So this sold in October of this year. And
now let's take this in because, I mean, this coin looks tooled. It looks
well, it's not tooled.
No, I mean, but it looks like it has that surface to it. It looks like
it just has the quality of the coin that I would pay $1,000 for. And this one sold for $8,000 because it had a star 5555. So again, here somebody paid for the plastic; they didn't pay for the coin. And so
how could you
that is my
5555 this coin anyway? How could you do that? The surfaces don't look clean. They look kind of chunky.
It's hard to say, Mike.
No,
It's hard
look,
to say.
I'm completely, I'm amateur out in left field taking pot
I mean,
shots, I guess. So
this is a photo from an auction house. We don't really know what the coin looked like in hand. Sometimes the photography blows out.
well, that's true. Yeah.
So we don't really know. It might have been really crisp, but the die doesn't change. So it may actually be. I don't have any problem with them saying that it's a mint state coin. But what I have a problem with is somebody overpaying because they don't know what they're buying. And so, that's no more than a $2,000 coin, and somebody paid, 4 times what it was worth.
Yeah, so that would definitely be the case of way overpaid.
Right. And if you go to the last one, this got a mint state, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. It sold for $3,500. I think that's fair. Maybe it's a little strong, but it's not stupid strong. And so here's a situation where somebody actually paid for the coin, not the plastic. It didn't matter that it meant say 5555 because that's what it was, but they paid the correct price for it.
So this is the same coin.
No, this is a different coin.
Okay. Sorry. Pay no attention to the dumbass over on this side.
Lots of Alexanders in the world, my friend.
Well, there are, but it was like I was kind of trying to look at it saying, okay, because this one looks so much better. It just, the surfaces of it look crisp and
right, but
and
it's that's a strong price, but it's not a stupid price. And so I was proud, I was happy to see that because that means that every once in a while somebody gets lucky.
And this was the case of getting lucky. Huh?
So that's my discussion on that, and yeah.
So
yeah,
the visual aids really helped. It really brought it along. It's
always nice when you can see them on screen.
It tied the room together. Yeah, we have to talk to it. I had to fire our video editor.
Yeah, I know. It's
one
hard
show
to get good help these days. It is. So the nameplay this week is Ptolemy, and it's spelled Ptolemy. And I bring Ptolemy up because he was the general and confidant of Alexander the Great. And we've been talking a lot about Alexander the Great throughout this show.
Seems
so
like
why not Ptolemy? So what was really cool about Ptolemy is that after the Alexander died and they had conquered the world, I like to consider him the first original OG because he kind of rolled into Egypt with his feather cap and kind of took that land over. And what's even cooler is after Alexander died, his body, at Alexander's wishes, was supposed to be buried in Macedonia. And in fact, Ptolemy stole the body of Alexander the Great and brought him to Egypt, and then eventually built him a temple at Alexandria.
So you're saying that Ptolemy turned Alexander into a pharaoh?
No, just he wanted him close to him is what I think.
Okay.
And he wanted to honor him the way he wanted to honor him. And not only did Ptolemy do all of that, but he also that's about the time that coinage began in Egypt. There was no coinage in Egypt before that. So really the Greeks, or in this case, the Macedonians, because they were Macedonians really, took over Egypt. And then Ptolemy's line lasted for 300 years, ending with the famous Cleopatra.
That's a heck of a way to wrap it. Wrap up your line with Cleopatra.
And some people spend their whole lives just studying coins of Ptolemy and Rome and Egypt. So it's a really interesting time period.
Yeah, and a lot of the coins of Ptolemy still have Alexander the Great on them, but Ptolemy's name, and that's kind of cool. He was
during that period after his death, for at least until he took over Egypt anyway.
Well, I mean, I think that says a lot about Alexander, right? That he was had such an impact that the ruler after him, which normally is, the next ruler wants to create his own thing and do his own thing. The next ruler carried that standard, and the next ruler after that.
Right.
That's a long way.
So that's our show, Mike.
So that's our little trip through ancient coins this week. And we got a Pearl of Wisdom. So our Pearl of Wisdom for this week was good art gets better, bad art gets worse. I like that one. And today we learned about Alexander the Great and saw some really, really cool coins. So what auctions do you have your eyes peeled on for next show?
Well, the Triton sale, the New York sale.
Okay.
We'll see what comes out in Heritage. I haven't really seen much there yet. There's an auction by Talbot's. That's going to be the week after the New York International. There's always something going on.
Always something new. So, yeah, so very interesting.
Oh, and finally, we wanted to bring up, since we are in the holiday giving mode.
That's right. I didn't even think about that.
I know. So my father, he did pull. I have the first edition at home. I don't have the second edition, but this is the 100 Greatest Ancient Coins book that my father wrote. This is the first edition. We're going to be getting 5 copies of the second edition, signed by Harlan Berk himself, to some lucky listeners. And how are we going to do that, Mike?
Well, let's see. I think it would be best if we do it a little bit at a time. So how about we give away 1 tonight, and 2 next show, and 2 the show after that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So let's see. How about what would be a good thing for the listeners to show how much they're learning or what their favorite thing about? Maybe that's it. Maybe we have them go to the Ancient Coin podcast group on Facebook, and Aaron will post a thread tomorrow saying, how did you enjoy, and here's our show, and what we want your comment on is what your favorite part of the Ancient Coin podcast is. 2 shows in.
Sounds good.
What's your favorite part? And we'll pick a winner from the thing that we like. We want your input. We really like to include you in this learning experience, because God knows, I mean, you saw tonight. I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah, this funky journey we're on.
Well, it'll be fun. That's the great part about it is.
So Mike, just like Ptolemy and his feather cap riding into Egypt, like the original OG,
with his
why
mind
don't
on
you
his
take us
money
out?
and his money on his mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all right. So we want to thank everybody that helped us put this together. Everybody that contributed, but most of all, we want to thank you who listened. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time on the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.